Welcome. You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast, the show that cuts through the fog of war and updates you about the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts.
Hello, I'm Marina Yevshan, your host of the Russia-Ukraine War Report podcast, and today is October the 10th, 2024. It has been 3,909 days since Russia started covert military operations in Crimea, 10 years and 232 days since the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, 2 years and 229 days since Russia expanded its war of aggression, and 66 days since Ukraine counter-invaded Russia. Today's podcast covers the events that happened on Wednesday and Thursday morning. Our Russia-Ukraine war map is a great companion to the podcast, and there is a link in the podcast description. There are map updates today. The Russia-Ukraine war report is compiled by our team from around the world. Today's report includes information from our direct contacts and journalists in Ukraine, the Russian Ministry of Defense, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine morning reports, operational commands north, south and east of Ukraine, open source intelligence, our in-house team of analysts and geospatial experts, and pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russian mail bloggers and social media channels with a track record of trying to be accurate. We have one mission, the truth, because the truth matters. Here is my daily assessment. 1. Without a major event, such as the use of seaborne weapons, Russian forces won't recapture the Kursk region of Russia or capture Chasiv Yar, Toretsk, New York, Mirnograd, Pokrovsk, Kurakhove and Selidove by autocrat Vladimir Putin's October the 15th deadline. 2. Russia has increased the number of mechanized attacks in Ukraine, but in our assessment, most of the reserves prepared for 2024 have been deployed, reducing Russia's ability to turn breaches into tactical successes. Grunts with guns take territory, grunts with guns hold territory. 3. In our assessment, due to increasing indications that Moscow is finding it increasingly difficult to maintain the current operational tempo, Russian troops are attempting to advance as far as possible before fall and winter weather arrives. 4. We maintain Moscow does not have or will not commit a sufficiently large enough force to liberate the Ukrainian-occupied parts of the Kursk Oblast. 5. Continued nuclear threats from Moscow highlight how the world remains caught in the mutually assured destruction instability paradox. 6. The lack of a meaningful response by Ukraine's allies and international organizations to open and unrestricted attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure by Russia has convinced Moscow this is an effective strategy with no political consequences. 7. Russia will maintain its attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, continuing Russian crimes against humanity that started in October 2022, as outlined in 4 arrest warrants issued by the International Criminal Court. The continued attacks are increasing the probability of a nuclear accident at one or more of Ukraine's nuclear power plants due to a loss of external power connections. 8. The policy of escalation management implemented by the NATO alliance and the United States is a complete failure that has only encouraged Russia to escalate hybrid and kinetic warfare actions against the NATO alliance and Ukraine's allies and their economic interests. 9. The Russian economy is much weaker than reported. 10. We maintain there could be a shift in Washington's policy toward Ukraine's request for deep strikes within Russia after the November the 5th national elections in the United States. Yesterday, Russia carried out 149 discrete assaults, and through October the 9th, the 7-day moving average for daily attacks increased slightly to 156. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine did not release data on Russian airstrikes and fire missions. In the Kursk region, Ukraine controls 1,007 square kilometers, with another 262 in the grey zone, for a total area of 1,269 square kilometers. Ready for today's action report? Here we go. Starting in the Kursk region of Russia near Koreneva, Russian and Ukrainian videos confirmed that fighting in Obukhovka has moved to the southeastern corner of the village. Ukrainian forces attacked Russian positions with drones, while Russia struck Ukrainian positions with artillery. The video from Russian state media claimed that Ukraine withdrew from Pokrovsky but provided no supporting evidence, only showing a potential artillery strike south of the hamlet. Based on the new intelligence, the line of conflict and grey area was adjusted at Obukhovka. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed Novaya Sorochina had been captured without any evidence. In our assessment, based on the known line of conflict, we find the claim highly unlikely. Ukrainian forces captured an intact Russia R-448 Oraiga satellite communications terminal and transmitter. The R-448 was introduced in 2014 and first appeared on March 31, 2022 near Kyiv in a Russian propaganda video with a group of Russian soldiers showing its deployment and configuration. We link to the link to capture pictures and the 2022 video, which is jarring to watch. Russian troops in matched uniforms with the best equipment and recruiting poster looks. A lot has changed in 31 months. Ukrainian officials announced the mandatory evacuation of 497 children living in 101 settlements in the Sumy and Konotop districts of the Sumy Oblast. The order also includes the parents, guardians, or other legal representatives who are responsible for the children. The first evacuations in the Sumy region were ordered in April, with local officials preferring to encourage evacuation versus taking legal action. Over 2,000 children have left, but too many remain. Here is what happened in my home, Ukraine. There was very little change to the line of conflict, so I'm going to focus on the major events. In the Kharkiv Oblast, the Russian forces struck Ukrainian positions in Vovchansk at the machine aggregate plant and the area to the immediate southwest with thermobaric rockets. This solidified our assessment that the Russian flag shown briefly in a bombed-out building early in the week was the Russian sabotage and reconnaissance squad ordered to make a picture report. The day after claiming for the second time in 8 days that Verkhnyokamyansk was captured, Russia released a video showing Ukrainian positions east of the village being shelled less than 400 meters from the existing line of conflict. The second part of the video allegedly was recorded at the drainage under the roadbed, but could not be geolocated. In the northeastern part of the Donetsk Oblast, fighting continued along the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal in the Chasiv Yar area. The Ukrainian Air Forces bombed a Russian command post in occupied Bakhmut using United States-provided GBU-62 JDAM ER 900 kg bombs. South of Toretsk, Russia used thermobaric rockets on Ukrainian positions between Zalizny and Nelipivka. The map was adjusted, with the strike revealing that Ukrainian troops were further east than previously assessed. In the southwestern part of the Donetsk Oblast, Russian forces made a small gain on the railroad grade north of Tsukurine in the direction of Selidova. Fighting was ongoing in the southeastern corner of Tsukurine, with Russian troops under fire by Ukrainian armor. In occupied Crimea, the fire at the fuel depot in occupied Feodosia continues to burn out of control. Russian state media agency TASS revealed that firefighters are now conducting a defensive operation and not actively fighting the fire where tanks are burning. Winds are so strong it is making it harder for firefighters to control the situation. The report made no mention of the Ukrainian attack. Russia struck the port of Chornomorsk in the Odesa Oblast with 3 Iskander-M short-range ballistic missiles. 6 people were killed and 11 wounded, all civilians, with 7 in critical condition. The South Korean-owned Panamanian-flagged Shui Spirit container ship was damaged in the attack. AIS data and geospatial intelligence from Sentinel-L2A showed that Shui Spirit was docked south of the harbor observation platform at the ferry terminal. Korea Marine Transport took ownership of the vessel in May 2024. Prior to its purchase, it was the Xiangying, Rizhao, China, and Vostochny, Russia. While the vessel made at least 14 stops in Vostochny, which is the Russian port used by North Korea to evade sanctions, there is no evidence the ship ever went to a North Korean port. We are moderately confident that the ship damaged in an October 6 Iskander-M missile strike at Pivdenny port is the Sally M. The vessel is Libyan-owned and Panamanian-flagged. The owners only have the Sally M in their portfolio, which operates under the company Gulf International, based in Malta. We cannot explain why Ukraine, the ship's owners in Libya, Panama, or the Malta-based management company have not released a statement. The vessel is still moored at the coal terminal in Pivdenny, and there is a visible damage forward of the bridge, which is where the Russian missile struck. There are also signs of damage to the pier. The damage is localized, and it appears unlikely the ship carried ammunition, long-range missiles, or F-16s, as claimed by various Russian sources. In the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, a Russian drone observed an active Patriot air defense battery near Dnipro, with Russia attacking the site after confirming it was active. An AN MPQ-65 radar was destroyed, and an AN MSQ-104 engagement control station was damaged. The loss of the MSQ-104 will have the biggest impact, eliminating the air defense node. Regrettably, our analysts believe this is the real deal and not decoys. On the Russian front, Ukrainian drones struck the fuel depot at the Luhansk military airfield in the Odesa Republic. At sunrise, the smoke plume from the fire was visible for tens of kilometers, being driven by strong winds. On October the 6th, Sentinel L-2A full-color imagery showed 14 fighter planes parked on the apron. Luhansk is normally a training base, with over 24 L-39 Albatrosses at the airfield. Russia has been flying Su-34 missions from the field because it is located out of the range of ATACMS, Storm Shadow and Scalp missiles, but still within 400 kilometers of Ukraine. 1,300 residents in Rednikovy were ordered to evacuate, and Russian officials closed area roads, indicating that ammunition was stored at the field or the damage goes beyond the fuel storage. Ukrainian Neptune ER cruise missiles struck the ammunition depot near Oktябrьsky in the Krasnodar Krai of Russia. Russian social media reported that Arsenal was part of the first squadron of unmanned aerial vehicles of the Grom Kaskad Brigade. The attack destroyed 45 Shahed-136 drones and 108 warheads, as well as fuel reserves. Another arsenal with missiles was also reportedly destroyed. Russian propagandist fighter bomber reported that a Yak-130 training jet crashed near Volgograd, with the pilot and student in hospital.
You're listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War Podcast. Our team of journalists, researchers, and analysts is funded by readers, listeners, and viewers just like you. To support independent journalism, please consider becoming a patron. You can find us on patreon.com/Malcontentnews.
Here is today's Theaterwide update. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has suspended draft deferments through November the 15th, after an audit found that 1.5 million men have critical enterprises employee deferments. Zelensky has asked for an audit of critically important enterprises and which employees have received deferments. Ukraine and Croatia signed an agreement to encourage collaboration between their defense industries, with the potential for joint production, which covers cooperation with regard to digital resilience, cybersecurity, and the countering of foreign information manipulation and interference. Turkey reiterated that the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine, including Crimea, must be respected. Moving to assessment. Ankara is concerned that if Russia is able to hold Crimea, or worse, take control of the Odesa region, Moscow will exert its will across the Black Sea. In 1914, when the Russian Empire entered World War I, Tsar Nikolai II set a maximalist goal of capturing Romania, Bulgaria, and the western part of Turkey, taking full control of access to the Black Sea. Autocrat Vladimir Putin has stated his end goal is to re-establish the maximum borders of the empire, which would include parts of modern-day Romania. Beyond the issues of political and sea power, there is another factor: the historical connection between the Crimean Tatars and Turkey. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban faced the scorn of European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen during a European Parliament meeting. Orban was blasted by numerous MPs, including renewed calls for an Article 7 declaration, which would remove Hungary's voting rights within the Commission. At one point, delegates started singing Bella Ciao, an Italian song that celebrates World War II partisans in the Italian resistance fighting against fascism. The president of the Commission reminded delegates, quote, "This is not Eurovision." And after all of the political posturing, the Council of the European Union approved a $38.3 billion macro-financial assistance aid package to Ukraine, the same one Orban said he would block until after the US elections in November. The funds will be made available to Ukraine by the end of 2024, with the loan repaid over a maximum of 45 years. The package still faces a hurdle, with the measure needing to be put into writing and then approved in its first reading. This gives Orban one more opportunity to block its passage. It's time to visit the land of Mobiks, Mobilization and the Mir, and I start today's section with an absolutely wild story. A few hours ago, Chechen warlord and aspiring dentist Colonel General Ramzan Dondon Kadyrov declared a blood feud against 3 Russian State Duma deputies, accusing them of plotting his assassination. Kadyrov made the statement speaking to an assembly of his military leaders and senior officials in Grozny. It was the first time the strongman addressed the shootout at the Wildberries corporate headquarters in Moscow that happened last month. Kadyrov has inserted himself into the ongoing bitter divorce between Wildberries founders Vladislav Bakalchuk and his wife Tatiana Kim, vowing to help Bakalchuk force Kim to end the divorce and block the merger of Wildberries with advertising firm Rus. Last month, the feud exploded into violence when Bakalchuk and his security detail tried to force their way into Wildberries headquarters in an attempted physical takeover of the building. A shootout ensued, leaving 2 security guards dead and Bakalchuk and several Chechen nationals linked to Kadyrov facing murder charges. During his statement, where Kadyrov appeared to be in ill health, he angrily said, quote, "I officially declare a blood feud against Behan Barakhoev, Suleiman and Rizvan Kurbanov." The video we link to in today's situation report shows senior Chechen officials in shock. Kadyrov's connection to the divorce and attempts to block the merger between Wildberries and Rus is viewed as part of a larger dispute between Kadyrov and the Russian oligarch and Duma deputy Kerimov. Kerimov is also tightly connected to Putin and is believed to be part of the financial network that manages and hides the Russian autocrat's wealth. Reportedly, in the dispute between Bakalchuk and Kadyrov and Kim and Kerimov, Putin is backing the proposed Wildberries-Rus merger, which would put Kadyrov on the outside. Moving to assessment. As with Sergei Shoigu and Yevgeny Prigozhin, the dispute between Kerimov and Kadyrov is about 2 unmovable objects set to collide. The pair, just like Shoigu and Prigozhin before them, are banking on autocrat Putin to pick a side. And both are making the same mistake that Shoigu and Prigozhin made. When it comes to a feud within his inner circle, Putin has no loyalty. His loyalties lie with himself and how he can achieve his legacy of being remembered as a Tsar who restored Russia to its imperial glory. On Telegram, Kadyrov had a softer tone and made no mention of a blood feud, essentially a death warrant not only for the 3 Duma deputies but their families. Just like Putin, Kadyrov maintains his power through the illusion of strength and the threat of brutality. He made the declaration in front of the senior officials of the Republic: there is no going back. If the past is a predictor of the future, the only winner in this blood feud will be autocrat Putin. Writing for The Telegraph, David Axe reported that production of the Su-57 Felon, Russia's claimed 5th-generation fighter, has been suspended due to its dependency on Western electronics. Russia was able to build around 10 Su-57s in 2022 and 2023, but has produced only 2 or 3 in 2024. 10 prototypes were built by hand before 2020, with poor build quality. 1 prototype and 1 production model have been lost in crashes, and a Ukrainian drone strike damaged a third. In contrast, the United States is producing 12 to 13 F-35 fighters a month, with over 1,000 in service. Overnight, Lithuania installed anti-armor Dragon teeth on the bridge that connects Sovetskaya in the Kaliningrad Oblast of Russia to Panyamune. This is part of a broader plan to reinforce the defensive barriers on the Russian border. The Dragon teeth will receive steel beam reinforcements, and the bridge will be pre-staged for demolition if intelligence decides in the future that it is in the national interest. The Russian central bank adjusted the exchange rate against the euro and US dollar again, 97 rubles for $1 and 106.5 rubles for €1. At the time of publication, the official exchange for the dollar had dropped further to 97.4. The Russian bond market is in free fall, dropping to 99.35, called below par in the equities market. That means that Russian bonds are selling for less than their face value. Bond prices fall below par when interest rates increase or when the issuer's credit rating falls. Russian inflation continues to rise, and after 2.5 years of admittedly brilliant work by the Russian Central Bank, they're out of tricks. Yesterday, the Russian Ministry of Defense held a bond auction offering securities with a floating rate, which is meant to attract investors worried about increasing interest rates and inflation. The auction only raised 5 billion rubles, around $51 million. The last time Russian bonds were below par was in 2008, during the global Great Recession and financial crisis. And that's what we know. Your support of my home, Ukraine, helps us make history and protect the future for all.
You've been listening to the Malcontent News Russia-Ukraine War podcast. To help keep us independent, please consider providing financial support by becoming a patron. Want on-demand news in your hand? Download the Google News app and make Malcontent News one of your favorites to receive breaking news updates. Thank you for listening.